Greetings, my folks from the South. This is L3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mansions of South Florida, and today's date is Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. So let us begin. Woo, yeah, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I'll just decide to do another show today, and I know it's a little bit windy back here, so bear with me. Hopefully things are going well on your end. Yeah, it's a little windy, of course. That's how it goes. I try to counter that the best I can. All right, so a lot of interesting stuff is happening right now as we speak, and plus, we'll be talking about a few cases: Jeffrey Epstein and Wells Fargo, and what's the other one? What's going on in protests in France, and of course Republicanism and how we can get it back. It's not all in sequential order, so forgive me on that area, but it's really interesting because, like I say, it's a lot of stuff is being exposed, which is good. I'm not going to follow a lot of hype and hoopla. Looks like there's some battles going on too with the Mueller probe investigation, the whole Russian connection, hot air I call it, because he has no merit. He's just wasting our tax dollars away. Hooray! And all the Trump haters climax. And this is one of the areas people need to focus on. Don't get angry with these individuals, but you have to put out the truth. Make sure everything is accurate, instead of hating someone so much and anything he does or any allegations is true. You cannot live in bizarro world or the post-fact dimension. It will burn you when least expected. So on the contrary, I'm just gonna start off with a little on Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein settles out of court in civil trial to avoid release of new info. He settles out of court. Ain't that nice? Or how astute? Of course. You know how that goes. Whole song and dance, right? This is what by Derek Bros, activist post. And as it reads, Jeffrey Epstein has agreed to a financial settlement and issued an apology to Bradley Edwards, the attorney representing several of Epstein's victims. West Palm Beach, Florida. Jeffrey Epstein has apologized for filing a malicious lawsuit against attorney Bradley Edwards. The apology and the confidential financial settlement officially bring an end to the lawsuit, which was peripheral to the larger fight to hold Jeffrey Epstein accountable for dozens of young girls he molested. Edwards has been representing 3 female victims of Epstein for nearly a decade. The settlement relates to an ongoing legal battle between Epstein and Edwards. In 2008, Edwards successfully sued Epstein on behalf of 3 women who claimed he abused them. All the women were teenagers at the time. Epstein would later countersue, claiming that Edwards was bringing Epstein to court as part of some type of Ponzi scheme. The suit would be eventually dropped, but Edwards returned the gesture by suing Epstein for defamation of character. A lot of cloak and dagger going on in this case, right? The following statement was released by Epstein via his lawyers. While Mr. Edwards was representing clients against me, I filed a lawsuit against him in which I made allegations about him that the evidence conclusively proves were absolutely false. The truth as is that his aggressive investigation and litigation style was highly effective and therefore troublesome for me. The lawsuit I filed was my unreasonable attempt to damage his business reputation and cause Mr. Edwards to stop pursuing cases against me. It did not work. Despite my efforts, he continued to do an excellent job for his clients, and through his relentless pursuit held me responsible. I am now admitting that I was wrong and that the things I said to try to harm Mr. Edwards' reputation as a trial lawyer were false. I sincerely apologize for the false and hurtful allegations I made and hope some forgiveness for my acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Okay, so that's an interesting perspective there, right? Of course, there are 15 photos of Epstein's vehicles right outside of the courtroom. During the press conference following the settlement announcement, Bradley Edwards and his counsel, Jack Scarola stood in front of boxes of files related to the case against Epstein and pictures of Epstein's vehicles, homes, and planes. We thought it important so you could see what decades worth of legal work looked like. Scarola stated, which has gone into the prosecution of this case in order to resist an army of legal superstars. Although the suit was not directly related to the crime of Epstein, Edwards' attorney were expected to call some Epstein's victims as witnesses to corroborate the validity of the original claim against Jeffrey Epstein. However, during the press conference, Edwards noted that the court was wary of allowing the trial to turn it into a battle over Epstein's sexual crimes. Edwards stated at the end of his lawsuit will now rightfully put the focus on back on the women who have been victims of Epstein's sick behavior. Edwards also noted that the lawyers have found victims of Epstein around the United States and around the world. Now that Epstein has apologized, the focus will shift back to Edwards and Scarola's efforts to have Jeffrey Epstein's original non-prosecution agreement or sweetheart deal overturned. If a federal judge does overturn the deal, Epstein could be liable for further lawsuits and trials. Please stay tuned for further updates on the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. Backgrounds on today's events: the mainstream media sudden interest in the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein comes as a result of an in-depth investigation published by the Miami Herald. The Herald's investigation was itself published just 1 week before Epstein's latest civil trial is set to begin in Palm Beach, Florida. The investigation repeated what many in the independent media have been reporting for years. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein was accused of participating in sexual acts with young girls by at least 40 women before he was given a sweetheart deal by the U.S. government, which allowed him to avoid spending the rest of his life in bars. Some of the girls also accused Epstein and his high-profile associates of organizing sex parties where young girls would be raped and abused. Epstein was offered a non-prosecution agreement which allowed him to plead guilty to the lesser charge of soliciting a minor for prostitution and soliciting prostitution. He was ordered to pay multi-million-dollar settlements to victims and sentenced to 18 months in jail, of which he was only served 13. Epstein was allowed to stay in the Palm Beach County Jail in his own private cell, where he was allowed to leave the prison 6 days a week for work release. Epstein was forced to register as a sex offender for life, but with his money and his connections, he doesn't seem to bother. He currently resides his private island in the Virgin Islands. Interesting indeed, huh? So this is really funny because he just admit to all these things, but he had a lighter deal. So he incriminated himself by saying, yes, I am a sex offender. So it's one of those areas you have to really look at, folks. And there's a big controversy with Jeffrey Epstein for years. And I gotta give the Miami Herald some credit, the writers in there, the journalists, investigative journalists, for making that expose more, because the alternative media has been talking about this for years, okay? But at least it's about time it goes into the bigger steps. Because I gotta say, I was real critical of some of the past actions of these mainstream newspapers. However, now the internet changed the game around, and they gotta give them more creative control, because there's some good people out there in these big newspaper chains that can do credible work. So accuracy is essential on this whole, in the cases like this, for example. And what I'm going to do too, I'm going to add the FloridaBulldog.org site on here as well. Who were pedophile Epstein and Prosecutor Acosta protecting with bizarre deal? It's very interesting because there's even cases too, claims President Trump, Bill Clinton, and even Alan Dershowitz were involved, and the sweet deal, which it really gets people's mind, which his name Alex Acosta, at the time he was an attorney, now Secretary of Labor. I'm like, what the hell is this? Good grief, and it really gets my goat, man, to be very frank. There's even claims too that Roy Black was involved, according to this article. Revisiting the deal and all that. And what's funny, because even Congresswoman Deborah Schultz wanted to investigate the Epstein-Acosta non-prosecution agreement. Yeah, but if it was a Democrat, you just put that in the side. So I'm not really too impressed with these people. And so, And of course, there's the Alan Dershowitz was involved, so there's some strong allegations here, which Dershowitz denies. So we can see how try to conceal all this information. I guess what happened here. So it's one of the areas you got to look at, and of course, Trump and Clinton claimed they were involved, and even Edwards worked for Rothstein too. Interesting. So it's a lot of strong information here. Which the cool thing about, because it's non-partisan, okay. And they had Jane Doe 102, I think that's called, and alleged involved in sex with underage girls, according to an affidavit. So it's really complex. So I'm not gonna go all out reading it. But even was funny because about some of Epstein's negotiating team. Okay, yes, with another lawyer with direct nods said Dershowitz was one of the many members of the Epstein's negotiating team, along with Miami superstar Roy Black. Roy Black is he actually represented a lot of cops in the Miami in the city of Miami, and one of them was the William Lozano case. Had a riot broke out in '89, and of course he was found guilty for manslaughter, second-degree murder, manslaughter, in the courts of Miami. They appealed it, and they brought it to Orlando. And I was watching some of that video about when Roy Black represented Lozano. One of the areas he really focused on was the credibility of the witnesses. One of the witnesses, when he asked one of the witnesses, "Were you smoking marijuana during this time of this incident?" They went, "Yes." I'm like, okay, cut. They're cutting all the witnesses' credibility to the core, and he was found not guilty. So a lot of people will find it very controversial. But the truth of the matter is, you gotta know your laws, know your credibility. Remember, credibility is the best policy in these cases. So Roy Black was involved with the Jeffrey Epstein. I know a lot of people can't stand the man. However, there's people that know him and say he's a good guy and he's good at what he does. So I'm going to add that to the memo, and I'll be right back. Cool, I am back. Awesome. So next article. So I'm going to put that in there as well. Next one here, I'm going to be narrating from Digital Trends. And this was titled, "A Second Wells Fargo Glitch Results in the Foreclosure of More Homes." Wells Fargo blamed a computer glitch for the second time this year that resulted in the bank mistakenly foreclosing of 100 of homes over an 8-year period. CBS News reported the software error applied to loan modification applications submitted between March 15, 2010 and April 30, 2018, according to Wells Fargo. And in November, Wells Fargo admitted the error in the filing with the United States Security and Exchange Commission, and noting that the computer glitch led the bank to deny its mortgage customers a request for a loan modification or payment plan in the 870 instances. Yeah, you think that's pretty accurate? I don't know about that, but I'll continue on here. Eventually, 545 homes were foreclosed because of Wells Fargo's error. Jose Aguilar, who owned one of the foreclosed homes, to tell his story in CBS News interview, which is put the link on there. It's a disturbing video. Trust me, I'm all out rape, but I'm a little bit keen right now. So, to compensate Aguilar for his mistake, Wells Fargo sent him an apology letter as well as a check in the amount of $25,000. But Aguilar still wants an explanation, and his lawyer stated that the amount doesn't even begin to cover his total losses. In its SEC filing last month, Wells Fargo cited that a calculation error occurred when the bank implemented new controls that led to its overestimated the attorney's fees for homeowners in the foreclosure process. This accounting error caused the bank to reject loan modification requests. We're very sorry to say that the errors occurred have assigned a single dedicated point of contact to ensure that each customer is engaged and assisted individually, a Wells Fargo spokesperson told Reuters at the time. This, however, isn't the first time that Wells Fargo's error resulted in homes being foreclosed. Wells Fargo has disclosed in August that a different calculation error in its underwriting software has resulted in 625 homes to be denied for similar loan modifications under a federal assistance program. That error resulted in approximately 400 homes for being foreclosed. Combined with this recently reported error, nearly 1,000 homes now have been foreclosed as a result of a mistake that Wells Fargo is now blaming on its computer software. Wells Fargo said it plans to work with each of those customers to reach a resolution, CBS reported. The bank is offering no-cost mediation. Meanwhile, nonprofit groups and sub-legislators are pushing for more answers. After the bank reported its August error in handling the federal assistance program, it revealed that it had set aside $8 million to compensation errors. It's unclear if additional funds have been reserved for the latest errors that closed in November. Both mortgage debacles adds to Wells Fargo's lengthy list mishaps in recent years that had created a public relations nightmare for the bank. Wells Fargo has been under scrutiny due to the prior banking practices that resulted in bankers opening unauthorized accounts on behalf of clients, overcharging customers, and the mistreatment of customers in this auto lending business. The bank agreed to a $1 billion settlement early in 2018. Last year, Wells Fargo was in the news for a security breach where 1.4 gigabytes of customer information was mistakenly shared with lawyers in an inadvertent leak. Well. And there's other edited stuff in here as well. And I'm just blows my mind. I'll be very frank. With all those homes that I got foreclosed, you just give it back to them or give them something with that value, as far as I'm concerned. These big mega banks really blow, folks. Okay? It's a form of Alexander Hamiltonianism. Alright? To all you anti-capitalist folks out there, that's what it is. It's not something like Adam Smith believes in. Give me a break. Better start knowing these facts. But one thing I hate, these big mega banks like to dictate and stuff like this. Oh, we're sorry. Yeah, you have people might be out in the streets. Oh, we're sorry. Shoot. I see a lot of foul play, racketeering, and breach of contracts with a bank like this, as far as I'm concerned, based on this information. Nothing new at all. Bank of America did something like that to one group years ago. Okay, and they said this house being foreclosed, and it was proven it was all paid in cash, and they didn't buy it. So the person sued Bank of America. This happened in Naples. Bank of America, he won, and he wanted to get. They didn't even give him a settlement yet. And you know what? The period of time, over and over, the judge said to get a court hearing, a court order, to have a moving truck go in with 2 escorts and 2 deputies from Collier County to seize any assets pertaining to that bank as collateral. And you know what? The branch manager had a cows. They had to call his supervisors, and they paid him on the spot. So this I'm sorry doesn't cut it. Marriages got destroyed because of it. It's pathetic. Don't blame the glitch. Blame you guys for not managing it well. That's why I don't do business with these people. And I'm not going to knock people who work the rank and file, the bank tellers. They're good folks. I'm not going to crucify them. But usually, how come you don't want to have an account with us? I don't feel like it. Pretty direct, but it's business, right? Yeah, that's why. Be careful what you wish for, folks. Don't go for these hype and hoopla agreements from shysters like them. And I say that in good faith, So I'm gonna hit this next one here because I don't want to digress to death. This next one here, it came from same site, Activist Post. It's cool about Activist Post because people they share information on this content on the site. It says here the real significance of the French Tax Revolt, and it's by Peter Earl. Came out today. Peter C. Earl to be exact. The Gilets Jaunes, Yellow Jackets, anti-tax rise in France escalated over the past weekend, again citing the impact of higher taxes on fossil fuels and the high levels of taxation in general. On everyday life, French citizens already subject to the highest taxes in the OECD are being crushed by both new and systematically increasing taxes, and have taken to the streets by hundreds of thousands in a citizens' revolution. Recommendations to declare a state of emergency have for the time been tabled. With no sense of irony whatsoever, in the press conference on Saturday, French President Emmanuel Macron stated, "I will never accept violence. Yeah, but bending over for the Rothschilds is legit." Yet violence is the core component of his chosen vocation as a statesman. Woo, he's so manly. Where's his bar Palmolive soap? Taxation poses as an equitable transaction, goods and services provided by a government in return for a fee more galling and a contribution from the taxpayer. But the nature of the interaction is obvious to all but indifferent, or determinedly thoughtless. It is not voluntary and does not follow from reason. Neither will even the most indefatigable defenders of state appropriation given the choice and confidentiality and miss an opportunity to skirt the tax man and retain their property. God bless the government. They're there to protect me. What a wet dream, right? The force of violent compulsion is the quintessence of taxation and tax policy, thinly ensconced behind the thin veil of platitudes regarding social goods and general welfare. In Paris, an oft-repeated phrase among the protesters is that they are fed up. Ambulance drivers have joined the protests, as have both teachers and students in at least 100 schools across France. Levying taxes on individuals to combat climate change or for the accomplishment of any social betterment project is unfailingly undertaken in the name of the sanctity of life. Yet, if life is an invaluable state and condition, so too that of the right of personal property. Life absent the ability to enjoy the products of our toil by utilizing them directly or voluntarily exchanging them with that of others is a life circumscribed, and thus life a forcibly, purposely denigrated in quality. Media images depicting the tax insurrection are dominated by burning cars, graffiti on the Arc de Triomphe, and clashes with police, despite the fact that the majority of the 136,000 protesters on Saturday were disruptive but peaceful. Yet, none should doubt the long-seething precursor to this conflagration, despite the impossibility of capturing winnowed domestic budgets and severe fiscal hardship on film. Furor arises over a life circumscribed by bad luck or adverse conditions is considerable. That which results from unquestionable bureaucratic decrees is ultimately incendiary. The public reaction to the incremental repression of life's expression by state coercion at a certain point becomes immediate and visceral. It's playing itself out in the streets of Paris right now. Consider the larger stakes here. More than 100 years, European governments have built their invasive states with public sector controlling ever more of life. The promise of combining security and prosperity through state enhancement has failed to achieve its promise. And what does the political class propose? More government power, this time in the name of green energy. Can we say involuntary servitude? Hooray! At some point, it is too much. Just as the citizens suffering under Soviet rule finally said no more, the people suffering under social democratic rule might someday do the same. Observers have waited decades to see reforms that might forestall such a thing. Reforms haven't happened. Now the people are in the streets setting fires and protesting the police. It's not just France. It's spreading to Belgium and the Netherlands. Building of a European spring. What we see in Paris today might be the end of social democracy as we know it. When it comes in its place, is the battle of ideas today is really about. And he's a writer for AIER. Okay, he's an economist and writer. So, yeah, you should sign up for his articles and all that. It's good stuff. So that's what it came out, AIER.org. You can find it there, and it's like even part of even the European Union, okay, is responsible for this mayhem as well. It's madness. Remember, like this, my friends, government's a parasite of society. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Doesn't matter what nation it is. It's just plain and simple. And this is why Americans, okay, we have to say, no, we don't trust you bastards. Period. Government means control of the mind in Latin. Alright? So now look what's been happening. All this government dependency, public sectors, taxing the crap out of people. A lot of the rich folks left that country because of it. And you want to blame capitalism on that? Forget it, folks. You better start observing the bigger picture, because your wet dream agenda is going to backfire on you, and you're going to blame the other guy for it. Take a look in the mirror before you do that. And this is why what's going on in France just been happening for a long time. You're talking to an individual that's not even crazy about Macron, all right? Because we all know he's a Rothschild stooge, but he inherited this, and he pursued it more. Boom, breaking point. Thank you for choosing poorly to the government of France. All right, gonna do one more here. All right, gonna do one more here, and this one's entitled "When Republicanism Died and How to Revive It." This is by Bob Livingston. BobLivingstonLetter.com alerts. Check him out. Great stuff. Very conservative, but has merit. Something you don't hear from the neocons, okay? Or the rhinos, or the John McCains, or the George Herbert Walker Bushes. The Bush dynasty, right? When Republicanism died and how to revive it. The government, with all of its propaganda and police power, is at war with the American people. Governments always make silent war on their own citizens behind propaganda front, so as to alert as few people as possible. The less resistance from the people, the better it's for government. One of the fastest ways to clear the mental fog is to realize that the two-party political system is only one. Anyone clinging to the illusion of two parties will be deceived to their grave. America has become a fascist state, and the whole Congress supports the agenda of the state. Any dissent expressed by the political class is frivolous pandering. Any expressed concern for the complaints of the people is feigned and contrived. The election process in America has become a disguise for corruption that attracts the corrupt. When men and women go to Washington, they pretty soon learn that they are paid by the federal government, and therefore they are in the hire of a federal government. But they are truly beholden to the corporatist masters and moneyed interests that fund their campaigns and promise 6- and 7-figure lobbying, consulting gigs once their time in government is past. No allegiance to the constituents is necessary, as a matter of fact, there is very little pretension, at least until election time. If Americans could restore their power over the so-called elected representatives, this could cut out the smoke and mirrors of politics. I think the hour is late, and even too late, but let's try to reverse all the perks that our elected representatives have bestowed upon themselves. To do this, we must first turn back the clock to see when and how republicanism died. In 1913 was a terrible one for human liberty. The 16th and 17th Amendments were ratified that year, and the Federal Reserve Central Bank was established. The Federal Reserve created a fiat money system of theft for the benefit of the banksters and the moneyed elite. It is designed to impoverish people. The 16th Amendment established a progressive income tax that the U.S. Supreme Court failed to strike down. And just to give you guys, folks, a heads up, it wasn't even legally ratified 3/4 of the state. Look it up, please. The 17th Amendment changed the way senators were selected, taking the appointing power from state legislators and placing it in the hands of the voters. That removed the final nail, holding the checks and balances the states had in place over federal power. Most of the nails were removed in 1861 when Abraham Lincoln shredded the Constitution, stripped Americans of their strongest checks against federal tyranny and invaded the secessionist states. Yes, it wasn't a civil war. It was a war against the Confederate States of America. Like it or not, that's a fact. And just to let you folks know, too, it was never legally ratified to go to war with them by Congress. Look it up once again. The result is that in 1913, the U.S. government was taken over once and probably for all time by moneyed power. Many of the founders, particularly the anti-federalists, feared a powerful central government, so they established in the Constitution that each state's legislators would choose its 2 senators as one of the checks against a strong central government. Depending upon their own point of view, founders either hailed or lamented the fact that simply by refusing appointed senators, the states could see the central government destroyed. William Richardson Davie, and put an end to Samuel Johnston. Those are the guys who made those quotes. Or as Alexander Hamilton, who actually wanted a U.S. system similar to British mercantilism. Oppend is certainly true that the state legislators, by forbearing the appointment of senators, may destroy the national government. The 17th Amendment was proposed ostensibly to correct a procedural problem that cropped up when the divided state legislatures were unable to agree on a senator to send to Washington, D.C. This would leave states unrepresented. Micro solutions to mega problems. That's by Voivod off of Dementia Hate Trust album that came out 30 years ago. You should check it out, folks. According to a research powered by Wendy Schiller from Brown University and Charles Stewart III from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in about 2% of cases, the state legislators were deadlocked and unable to resolve their differences and select a senator. However, it did occur from time to time, even occurring in the very first Congress, when the state of New York went without Senate representation for 3 months. The direct election of senators by the people ended that problem by creating a whole new problem in which senators are now brought and paid by the banksters and lobbyists. You know, if you hear that's the water sprinkler system. It is a system that explains why the Republican elite are all in for amnesty for illegal aliens, which is pushed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and big corporations, but vehemently opposed by the majority of Republican voters. Ain't that nice? Government knows best. It also explains why Republican Congress weasels have failed to provide funds for building the wall on the southern border. Oh, I say this: stop giving out more dependency programs for those individuals that come in there. That's the way to solve it and get out of foreign entanglements. The 17th Amendment played a key role in suppressing the voice and will of the people and elevating the fascist system under which we currently suffer. Every election cycle, there is a hue and cry about the need for a campaign finance reform, and there is no question that money interest controls the process. Repealing the 17th Amendment will take the money out of the Senate elections on the federal level. Senators will be beholden to their state legislators rather than the corporatist class, which lines their pockets and finances their re-election campaigns. We can also turn the clock back toward human liberty by doing one simple thing, and that is by limiting the terms of representatives and senators and eliminating their federal pensions. Also, they should be put under the Social Security and the same Obamacare healthcare system as the American people. Why not? They're not that special. There should be no privilege associated with elected offices. Their ability to vote for themselves, pay raises, their tenure and pension perks, their liberal special law cost health perks not available to citizens, their immunity from the laws they pass on the people, their retirement plans paid for by the government, read the people, and their lack of term limits must all be removed. Their salaries should be paid by the respective states. John McMullen, a lawyer who has written extensively in the literature about the 17th Amendment, believes that repealing the 17th Amendment would give state legislators a greater say in the federal political process in several ways. Among them, it would have the effect of elevating state legislators from that of lobbyists to that of partners in the political process. The states would have the ability to decentralize federal power when appropriate, Will also give states more influence over the selection of federal judges and much greater say in the power of the federal judiciary. To this end, McMullen has proposed an amendment to repeal the 17th Amendment. It reads, an amendment to repeal the 17th Amendment and relink the states to the federal political process. Section 1, the 17th Amendment, 17th Article of Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Section 2, the Senate of the state shall be composed of 2 senators from each state selected by the legislature of each state. Each senator shall serve a 6-year term and may be reappointed. Each senator shall have 1 vote. So what they're saying is they're considered ambassadors of the state. They represent. And I support and I agree with that. Section 3, among the duties of each senator is the primary duty to represent the government of their state, and in particular their state's legislators in the Senate, for the purpose of maintaining communications with the senators. Each state legislature shall establish a liaison committee and shall specify the duties, procedures, and method of appointment of that committee. This committee shall work with the United States senators in evaluating the impact of federal legislation on their state. All legislation proposed by Congress and all treaties proposed shall be submitted to each state liaison committee. Section 4. Senators are subject to removal by the state legislature. Removal of a senator requires a majority of each house of the state legislature. Section 5. Congress is precluded from enacting any legislation affecting the senatorial selection process. Each state legislature shall enact rules and procedures consistent with this amendment related to the selection and removal of senators. Section 6. The amendment shall not be construed as to affect the term of any senator chosen before it becomes as valid as part of the Constitution. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors for the most numerous branch of the state legislators. Alert readers over the years have also sent various forms of the following bill that passed. It will also help to end the fascist system and restore republicanism. Congressional Reform Act. Term limits. 12 years only, one of the possible options below. No tenure, no pension. A congressman collects a salary while in office and receives no pay from government when they are out of office. Congress members, past, present, and future, participate in Social Security. All funds in the Congressional Retirement Fund and move to the Social Security system immediately. All future funds flow into the security system, and Congress participates with the American people. Congress members can purchase their own retirement plan just as all Americans do. Congress members will no longer vote themselves a pay raise. Congressional pay will rise by the lower of the consumer price index, or 3%. Congress loses their current health care system and participates in the same health care system as the American people. Congress must equally abide by all laws they impose on the American people. They're not exactly. All contracts with past and present congressmen are void, effective January 1st. In the year following passage of this act, the American people did not make this contract with congressmen. Congressmen made all these contracts for themselves. Serving in Congress is an honor, not a career. Founding fathers envisioned citizen legislator, serve your term, then go home and back to work. We could go like this: 2 6-year Senate terms, 2 2-year House terms, 1 6-year Senate term, and 3 2-year House terms. So these are the options. I would also add 2 more proposals. 1, representatives and senators should remain in their states at all times. Thanks to technology, the people's business could be carried out via teleconference. There is no need for them to reside in Washington. Having the Congress weasels working from their own districts and states would help insulate them from controlling interests in the district of corruption. That anyone serving in Congress should be banned from lobbying the federal government or Congress, at least for a period of less than 2 years from the date of their retirement. This will also be done by the American people. You can imagine that power-hungry elected officials and the corporatocracy will oppose any move to limit their power. It must be bottom-up grassroots efforts beginning at a local and state level. Citizens need to force their elected officials to introduce the Congressional Reform Act and repeal the 17th Amendment. We must act now to take back America. but we are wary of a convention of states, which many on the right are advocating for. A convention of states will quickly be co-opted by the same moneyed interests that currently control Washington. We saw it in action when they took over the Tea Parties. You can look at other movements too, Occupy, etc. You got good people in these movements, but you always got to beware of the shysters and the co-ops and provocateurs. Nothing good can happen to America without major economic and political reform. Can you see it? The rule of law must return to America. And I gotta say one thing. This is a flawless commentary by Mr. Bob Livingston. He's been doing this for a long time too, folks. And every time I read his stuff, and even Brandon Smith and a few others, I enjoy every minute of it. Because this is more of a bigger picture what the mainstream garbage media don't want you to know. So I will tell this to everyone. Share this with everyone you know. Plus, send it to your servants and say, hey, I want a response on this. Reply to me as soon as possible. Take it to your local levels of government as well and the states. I'm going to be doing that. I might just make these copies and just share it with send it to all to the commissioners of the city of Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. It'd be an envelope. Oh, tell me what you think. Then I may just email it to them as well. What the hell? Why not? Because the truth of the matter is, folks, they work for us, not the other way around. And what's been happening for a very long time, they want everything centralized. That is dangerous, unacceptable, and 100% treasonous. And one thing I could add too, if you read Title 18, Section 3002, subsection 15, they declare that the United States of America is a federal corporation. I may repeat it a few times, forgive me, but for the first time listeners, look it up. Don't be shy. Say yes to freedom and no to tyranny, and support decentralization. That is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share it to social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, you may send something this interview you may want to check out. Whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. I will post all my social media sites and email addresses on my Spreaker page. All right, and I'm gonna decide to play a song because this whole episode actually inspired me. And good friends of mine, a band called Cosmogyral. They're based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it's from their album, their newest album, and I forget. Oh, Behold, as the 8th track, Time Set the World Alight. It's like two different songs, and I did an interview with the vocalist Sean Adams and Dee Mulligan. Okay, the main core of the band, and you can look that up on my Euphonic Prosology show, and I can get that more activated. So anyone in the bands, especially local, if you want to get together, do an interview, play some music on my show, please, you know what to do. Send that out, okay? I'd love to hear from you. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is something for soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.
Watching the seconds fall away in contemplation, the realization that we're nothing more than what we perceive. And every second we will spend our lives as victims of a nameless crime. We slowly drift to die. As slaves who once seemed for can imagine, we hold the power to make so. As it is above the heavens, so it is below. Behold these macrocosmic forces that you can't control. Rolling through the universe, you transmutate the soul. Let it go. We can't imagine, we hold the power to make so. As it is above the heavens, so it is below.